The final sequence of La La Land offers one of contemporary cinema's most striking visualizations of nostalgia. To understand how the film uses this sequence to evoke both the character's past era and the collective past era of classical Hollywood, Svetlana Boym's distinction between restorative and reflective nostalgia is especially useful. Boym describes restorative nostalgia as a desire to reconstruct the lost home. Reflective nostalgia, on the other hand, dwells in algia, in longing and loss, the imperfect process of remembrance, accepting the past can't be restored. The final sequence in La La Land contains both impulses, as it lifts the audience out of the present and plunges them into an alternative history where Mia and Seb never separate and achieve their ambitions without sacrifice. The alternative story world demonstrates restorative nostalgia as it reconstructs the golden age of Hollywood. Saturated colours allude to the era's Technicolor palette, while the mise-en-scene of painted backdrops and studio-style streets create a perfectly crafted Hollywood set. Through intertextual references, the montage functions as a pastiche of old Hollywood musicals such as Funny Face and Broadway Melody of 1940. The film does not simply remember the past, but actively remakes it, reviving cinematic languages that feel lost in contemporary filmmaking. Within this alternative world, the conflicts in Mia and Sebastian's relationship vanish alongside any traces of temporal decay, exemplifying Boym's claim that restorative nostalgia has no use for signs of historical time, patina, ruins, cracks, imperfections. However, La La Land reveals a more complex relationship between restorative and reflective nostalgia. The sequence draws on the earliest forms of cinema, referenced in silent film through the absence of dialogue, the use of non-diegetic music, vignette transitions, and chiaroscuro cinematography. These elements create an aesthetic tension with the later Hollywood conventions, highlighting the film's layered engagement with cinematic history. Rather than representing a single historical era, the montage borrows freely from multiple periods, collapsing them into a unified impression of Hollywood's past. This mirrors the alternative narrative of Mia and Sebastian's relationship, which is also inaccurate and fantastical. Boym notes that reflective nostalgia does not pretend to rebuild the mythical place called home. It is enamoured of distance, not of the reverent itself. This resonates with La La Land's decision to reconstruct classical Hollywood, not as a historical reality, but as a symbolic template for Mia and Sebastian's idealised life. Drawing on the era's characteristic optimism, aspirational mood, and emphasis on happily ever after endings, the film uses a shared cultural memory of Hollywood to create a memory space which externalises the couple's desires, thus turning a collective cinematic past into a personal, reflective fantasy. This illustrates Boym's claim that nostalgia remains an intermediary between collective and individual memory. The sequence then adopts the visual language of home movies, introducing grainy, handheld footage reminiscent of Super 8 film. The moment breaks from the grandeur of Hollywood and focuses on the intimacy of personal memory making, reflecting more than ever how restorative nostalgia tries to reconstruct the lost home, or one that never existed. The power of the sequence lies not only in its idealisation. The montage is framed by the reality of the couple's present lives. Though successful, Mia is married to someone else, Sebastian remains alone, and their shared past exists only as a fantasy. Here the film removes musical theatrics, uses steady camera movements and a subdued diegetic piano score, and adopts a cool, deep palette to ground the audience back in reality. This framing reorientates the viewer towards reflective nostalgia, dwelling in the character's longing and loss. The cut back to Mia in the audience foregrounds what Boym calls the irrevocability of the past, revealing the memory not as a recovered truth, but as emotional speculation. Boym argues that only false memories can be totally recalled, suggesting that the vivid reconstructions signal not authenticity, but loss. It is the life they could have lived, maintained in perfect detail because it never had the chance to fracture. This aligns to Boym's understanding of reflective nostalgia as a form of mourning, connected to the loss of a loved one or the loss of sub-abstraction. La La Land's finale processes the loss of both a loved one and the abstraction of an imagined past and future. Ultimately, the final sequence of La La Land demonstrates how restorative and reflective nostalgia can coexist. The montage depicts an impression of both the characters and Hollywood's past, while acknowledging separation, change, and the impossibility of return. The reflective dimension appears most clearly in the couple's final smile, a gesture coded not as regret, but as recognition. It acknowledges the longing without attempting to collapse the distance between their present selves and the imagined world they momentarily inhabit. In this closing moment, the film affirms Boym's observation that longing might be what we share as human beings.